So speaking of firefight, I was playing Halo 3 ODST firefight with Adrian.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten what it means to be on an underpowered Xbox 360.
Compared to like a what?
Just...
Or like an old 360 compared to like an Elite or something.
I guess what I mean is like, no. Because I have a new 360. But what I mean is that I forgot what it was like to be at the limits of these games. So for example, Halo Reach, when I was playing it, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Look at all these graphics. Look at all this texture and stuff like that. And then I forgot that every time you play co-op system on this, every time you play co-op on the same system.
Apparently he only had 1 hit left.
I was like, how the hell?
I was gonna soul steal and like get all my health back.
Yeah.
And he didn't have any health left.
Sorry. So what I mean was, we were playing ODST, and it was like 720p downscaled, and the draw distance was only like within a few meters of the character.
Jesus.
So everything was like popping in and popping out and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's right. And it always baffled me. Because yeah, fucking stop, son.
But there's a door that I'm supposed to get to. I can't remember where it's at.
We need a third monitor for these shows where it's just game facts telling us what to do.
Well, we have computers.
So I remember seeing that for the first time when I played Halo 3 on the 360 co-op, and I was like, what the hell? Why is everything small? Like why is it all like broken? So that's what I mean about forgetting that these consoles, they're not as powerful as they really make them out to be.
No.
Do you have any idea why, even though you're just adding another player to the world, it feels like it has to regenerate the world in a second window? I don't understand that. I've never really got it.
I would think technically it's because that, you know, the game is still, like, even though it has those textures and stuff loaded in RAM and stuff, it still has to dynamically like generate them again on another player's screen and on however that player's interacting with it, right? Like, that's sort of where my knowledge of things starts to fall apart, and like how it technically works. But yeah, so like if, you know, even though the AI or something is being loaded all at once for both people, the actual like textures and the rigging of the characters and all of that has to be loaded twice. So it's taking more processing. It's like if you play Dynasty Warriors, you know, back on like PS2 or PS3 or whatever, you play one player, it's still like, you know, hundreds of enemies and stuff on screen, and you're decimating them and all this stuff. But then, as soon as you add a second player, like split screen,
yeah,
that number, like you get cloud, like fog everywhere, so it blocks off a lot of the draw distance.
Yeah,
and you have just enemies appearing out of nowhere as other enemies die, because it can only load so many at a time.
Yeah, I guess I just still don't get it. Like, so, you know, and I can't think of a good PC counterpart to this. Like, I don't know really any PC games that have split-screen multiplayer. Which, now that I think about it, is that a console exclusive, split-screen multiplayer? Like, for example, I can't play split-screen Portal 2 on my computer. That's kind of interesting.
But you can't, I don't think, can you play split-screen Portal on a PS3?
I don't know. Anyway, I just
Actually, I don't think you can, but I think you actually can. You can play Portal 2 across PC and PS3, can't you?
I
don't know. I know that when you bought it on PS3, they gave you a PC version.
Did they? Oh yeah. I did.
They gave you a Steam code for it.
Yeah, which was weird, by the way.
I don't think so.
I mean, well,
I think that's how it should be.
Yeah, I mean, ideal world kind of situation.
I mean, I can understand not getting, like, you buy it on Steam, then they give you, like, a download code for your PS3. I kind of understand that. But, like, if I buy a PS3, like a $60 Portal 2 for PS3 or something, like, they should throw in a Steam code.
I guess, but I said weird just because it was so different than the norm, not necessarily that it was a bad idea. It's just like, if you're going to beat it, play it and beat it on PS3. If your save files don't migrate, you're not going to play it and beat it on the PC as well.
It's true. But I think the point there was, I don't know if it would actually work, but I think the point there was that you could have a friend play it on PC with you.
Okay, that's
when
curious.
you're playing on PS3.
All right, well, maybe. Did we talk about the fact that Microsoft is letting you play Xbox One games on your Windows 10 PC now?
We have not talked about this, and I have not actually seen this ever be advertised.
Okay, so it was just recently in a blog post that they talked about it. So what they're doing is, if you have an Xbox One and you have a Windows 10 PC, any game on Xbox One can be streamed to your Windows 10 PC.
Okay, so it's not that you buy the game and then you can play it on your PC, which ideally that's what it would be. Like, I have a really good PC. I don't have an Xbox One. I can go buy an Xbox One game and play it on my PC. That would be amazing.
Shit, that would be a miracle, yeah.
But, so it's like the NVIDIA Shield and stuff, where they're streaming it to another screen, basically.
But this is the opposite, you know, like, I don't know how the Shield works necessarily, but the way the...
What I've heard, people that I know that actually have the Shield, which isn't many, but what they actually do is they have like a really good gaming PC or whatever rig, you know, wherever they have it. They hook up the Shield to their TV and then they stream their PC games to it so they can play on there, like in their living room.
Okay, yeah. So Steam is doing exactly the same thing. Steam basically says, we're going to give you a box, and what you're going to do is hook up that to your TV, plug in a Steam controller or a 360 controller,
right,
and then you just play your PC games on TV, which is cool. But that's the exact opposite of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We're saying, literally, take your console games, add a mouse and keyboard, and come play on your PC.
Is that what it is, though?
I did not see a confirmation.
What it sounds like is, and if you think about it this way, it's not nearly as useful. But it sounds like it's like if you take a Xbox One or 360 controller to your computer, you can play your Xbox games on your computer.
Right, but I'm gonna be totally honest. What are the chances that somebody just doesn't write a driver to emulate a 360 controller so that you can use mouse and PC? I mean, it's an inevitability.
Sure.
So it opens up so many questions of like, how did we get here for Microsoft to be like, yeah, of course you're going to play Xbox games on your PC. Like, I love it. I'm so glad. I've been waiting for this. But enter any FPS with a mouse and keyboard and you win, no matter what. So I don't know what this means.
See, I don't agree with that, but there is a lot of talk about that being like...
Spraying the cat.
There's a lot of talk of that being like unfair, and that's why they don't have crossplay between PC and consoles and things like that. And with how available like drivers and things like that are, I don't see why they wouldn't just implement it and then give people the option, which I think we've talked about before. Like, there are games where you can use a keyboard and mouse on a console and play them.
Right.
And
wasn't that
obviously
only on the Xbox, or was that on the 360?
I could do that with it's a weird reference, but I could do that with Final Fantasy VII Cerberus on PS2. I could play with mouse and keyboard, and it's a third-person shooter.
Yeah.
I don't see, and of course now the landscape is, you know, they're really pushing controllers for PC games. I just sprayed you, Kat. Ooh, critical. So I don't see why, you know, almost every game could have, like, obviously when they're in development, they use mouse and keyboard for these games a lot of the time. You know, that's just how it is. So it's like, oh jeez.
Hairball. I hope you guys enjoyed sound effects today.
Yeah, if they can hear it.
So,
okay.
I will say this. I hear what you're saying. Steam is trying to add controllers, even partial controller support to every game in their library.
They're trying to make PCs and TVs, I guess. They're trying to make PCs and Steam itself a home console. They're trying, and the problem, of course, is that they're not trying hard enough. They actually, there was a topic about this specifically on Kind of Funny Games, I think last week. They were talking about like the future of Nintendo, like basically all stuff we've said for weeks that I always get credit taken away from me because other people will repeat it. They were talking about how you know, nobody wants to make hardware really. Like, they know there's no money in hardware.
Yeah.
And that's partly why Nintendo needs to get out of it. And Steam didn't, like, Valve did not even want to make hardware. Like, they want people to do it for them, but they're not going to invest the money to make like a one Steam box that everyone's going to use, and it's going to be a home console like the Wii or like the 360 or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
They want other people, and they want there to be a bunch of them, and that's not going to work. It's too complicated. No one's going to understand. it'll be a niche thing until it dies away. And Steam really, like, that's the problem with that is that Valve is the one company that could probably really disrupt the whole thing and make a console that could compete with the others.
I guess.
But, like, Apple was going to, and they dropped out because it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't going to be able to, they're not going to make enough big money out of it to do it.
Well,
Amazon's still probably going to try, and it's going to fail.
Didn't they though? Haven't they already done that? The Fire TV.
In a way,
the Fire TV is.
But they're gonna try and go harder. Like, but it's not gonna do anything. They're gonna try and compete on a more solid level. That's the thing too. Is I feel like people say Apple dropped out, and in that sense that they did. But I still see them like all they have to do is come out with a stronger Apple TV that can basically play Mac games from the App Store on its own.
Well, okay, so
and they
I don't know.
Without having to actually make real hardware.
Apple's done an amazing job of making sure that you can stream audio and video nearly seamlessly throughout your house, no matter what device it's on. Now,
well, that's true too. They don't even need to make hardware that can do that. They just have to make it hardware
that can
strong enough that can stream it
1080p,
from your
60.
From your computer.
Exactly. So Mac games is a stretch, but any iOS game should be able to play on the next Apple TV that comes out. And there's enough evidence that we're going to hear about the next Apple TV at WWDC in June. So the wait should not be very long to find out.
Yeah, they just dropped the global price of their Apple TV 12 months ago, didn't they?
Yeah, to basically sell off stock.
Uh-huh.
So for me, and I've mentioned this before, I don't hardware specs do not interest me because I understand all of them. I've read all of them. I know what is necessary for things. The
problem is that they have to be used.
What it comes down to is the screen is the only thing that matters. Every single device you own should be fluid, smooth, intuitive, should have as much memory and hard drive space as necessary. Those are not concerns for humans. Those are things that computers should just know how to do. And we're basically at that point. We're basically at the point where...
Why am I so fucking lost?
We're basically at the point where if you give somebody a Core i5, 4 gigabytes of RAM, and Windows 7, you're okay. You're going to do just fine. And so that's great. It abstracts away the question of do you buy a big beefy PC or do you not? It's just everybody's basically okay with the midline stuff at this point. It's fast enough once you get an SSD that you're not going to notice. And so that's great. Big questions these days are people never can differentiate between why their computer is slow. And I have to work through this with them a lot. They say, oh, my computer's acting up. I'm like, okay, what do you mean? They're like, well, it's slow. I'm like, okay, what do you mean? I'm like, well... when I load Facebook, it's slow. I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. That's a difference.
That has nothing to do with the computer.
I was like, is it loading slow, or does it feel slow when you scroll? And they'll be like, well, it feels slow when I scroll. I'm like, okay, restart your computer. Did it work? Yes? Okay, move on. Whereas they can't differentiate between why the computer is being slow.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to give them the best specs possible. Every human should be using an SSD with 4 gigs of RAM and a Core i5 minimum, in my opinion. Because otherwise, they're going to be like, why is my computer slow? That's just how it's going to be. And people like us have to explain it to them. It's like, no, it's not slow. You have 15 programs open, and that's your own fault.
Right.
So, to me, every device is a dumb screen. And that's how I really view them. So our laptops, dumb screens. TVs, dumb screens. Phones, dumb screens. I don't care what the content is. It should be responsive to whatever screen I'm looking at. And any screen should be able to be taken over by whatever I want it to do. And I think we're going to get there. And I think we're really close. The fact that we're porting content over the air between different devices really shows me that the industry is moving in this direction.
Yeah, it's getting there.
And so that's great, because...
But how does that, in the sense that we're talking about, which most of the time is gaming, or at least more hardcore activity, like video editing or things like that, how does that have us deal with, the need for graphic capability?
Well, so
and power.
What is graphic capability? When you're rendering something, you want it to render smooth, detailed, and fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't have to happen very often, right? So if you're doing video editing, you only need to render once per export, basically, unless you screw it up. And then
it's not all just rendering either. It's just making the program fluid. You need decent graphics and RAM.
Sure, yeah, but that should be par for the course, according to what I'm saying. So, basically, last year's Intel, I think it's Broadwell, update, basically brought graphics parity with a low to mid-level graphics card. which is insane, and it's only going up from there. So within a year or two, we should have basically a mid-range NVIDIA card is the same as having just dedicated graphics, which is it's unheard of. Like if you asked me that 10 years ago, if discrete, what's the word? Integrated graphics would ever compete with discrete, I would never say. Ever.
Really?
Never.
I knew it would come.
No way. And I've done this research. Intel,
but the fact is,
the only reason Intel added graphics capabilities is because they had extra space on their chip. They're literally like, well, we could do something different. Hey, engineers, what do you want to do? And they're like, oh, let's add some graphics. And they're like, all right, cool. That's it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that's how they continue to sell. Why did you fall off the boat?
Because there's usually stuff down there, and now I can actually go underwater.
Gotcha.
Like that.
So again, Intel was like, oh shit, like we basically like around 2008. Clock speed's just capped. It was literally like, all right,
much, yeah.
We got 3 gigahertz. This is as good as it gets. So they had to get new ideas on how to continue to sell chips. So that's why they started doing dual core and quad core, and they started adding graphics capabilities, and they started doing low power chips and things like that. So, it won't be long until graphics capabilities are just standard. And the thing is, you're running.
Do you think graphics are going to cap?
Yeah, literally. Let me put it this way.
The only way I can see them technically capping is that they can only do so much with one chip.
Well,
but then
think about
then they're going to do the same thing where they're stacking and stacking.
If you get 1080-60 with VSync on, what do you care? Anything else is just egregious.
I mean, for the normal person, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that we're a little different. I want to be able to get like 4K at 320 frames per second.
But why? Right? So 4K on its own is great. 4K 60 is great. That's all you need. You can't see the additional 240 frames. It's just a dick measuring contest.
I would agree, but as soon as you add in 3D and stuff, you need like 60 frames or 240 frames.
240 frames, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's wacky.
Well, 240, or... Wait, am I doing my math right?
Is it multiplied by 3? It'd be 180.
What am I thinking? 320? Anyway, the refresh rates on TVs, they get bigger and bigger. So
mine is 240. But, there's a point where human eyes can't even tell.
Well, yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to get at, is once we hit a point where you can do ultra-high graphics, 1080, 60, you've taken care of 80% of the people. At that point, you're pretty good. And so we're getting there, very close with the iPhones and iPads that are out right now.
Getting to the 1080, 60?
Well, so like the iPhone 6 Plus is basically a 1080p screen, if I understand.
Yeah.
And Apple has always had silky smooth animations and transitions, and I believe it's 60 frames per second. So at that point, all game developers have to do is make sure that they can have a great experience on there. And I'll give you an example. No game on mobile that I've found actually has anti-aliasing, because the screen is such a high resolution at that size, you don't need it.
Right.
Like, everything can be super sharp and jaggy, but because of the way that it's played, you won't even notice. Whereas on a PC, you really want to turn on anti-aliasing pretty much anytime you can. Because their graphics and models are always so scaled up that in reality they were built for a 4,000 by 3,000 pixel screen and scaled down to 1080p, and that's where it gets really messy.
Right.
But if we could all just standardize to, it's 1080, done, then it's pretty good. But again,
that probably won't happen though, because of just future-proofing and archiving.
It definitely won't, and I respect that. I just mean that, like, I really do feel like we're on the verge of being done with this kind of race. It's the same reason why 3D came out. It's the same reason why, like, low power is the new thing. It's because, like, people care much more about longevity in their devices these days than they do in raw, like, specs. And just explaining specs, my God, I'm sure you've been in the same part. Like, how many times have you had to be like, no, a Core 2 Duo is not good enough when you can have an i5. Yes, they're both 2.2 gigahertz. Let me explain it to you again. It's like... People these days, they just buy a PC. They're like, $300? Done.
Yeah. I don't know. Computing is... It's a weird race.
Sure. So, you know, the more people I talk to that aren't like us. Oh, which good story actually. I was talking to a friend who he works at Zipcar, and somebody
What's
asked him. Zipcar is kind of like Uber, but you're on your own. So basically, you literally just walk up to the lot, grab a car, and walk away. And that's how you rent cars from them. It's really nice.
Okay.
They're based out of New York City. Well, that's where he works anyway. And so, somebody asked him there, they're like, how did you get so good at computers? And he's like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, what classes did you take that taught you how to be this good with computers?
Classes.
And we both laughed. We were like, what? Like, it just makes sense. But I can see the more that I talk to people that it doesn't make sense. Like,
yeah.
I think we've said this before on the show. Things that are like complicated and annoying are actually exciting to geeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're just literally like, oh, I figured it out. See, and but that's a very, very unique position to be in. Like the more people I talk to who are not techie, they're literally like, well, when I talk to nerds, it's very hostile. Like it's like we don't want them to know what we know because that separates us. And I've seen it. I do know people who are like that, but I've never been that way. Like I want everyone to know everything that I know, because if we all know everything, then hopefully we make the right decisions.
Discreetly increases height.
Discreetly. So yeah,
now a little bit taller.
So I'm always trying to teach people what I know about computers, and it really does come down to, do you want to learn or don't you? And I have some friends who have learned amazing things in the last few years, and then I have others who are literally like, no, I don't want to learn, I'm incapable of learning. And I'm just like, aw, well, good luck.